variety of cultures. I'm highlighting only some of the managerial issues on that. I'm not going much detail so that I can meet with the challenge put forward by the chairman of the board. Governance is what? Policy making, policy administration and service delivery. And it is in the service delivery that we bring in partners. The reason very often is that people who are very familiar with policy making and administration often are not very strong in service delivery. It's very difficult for a policeman to say, can I serve you? It is not possible, but not so easy. So that's why we try to bring partners. And even when we bring partners, we have to treat them as partners. It's two parts. It has to be a win-win business model. And we cannot have, very often, what I've seen in the failures of many of the e-governance projects wherein partners are brought in, is that we give them cookie-cutter business models, which may be what is relevant. We can't make, sitting in Delhi, decide what is a business model that is relevant to a small town in Haryana or in Punjab. So you need to develop and refine and fine-tune the business model if this partners has to become successful. Otherwise, they will find short circuit and the service delivery will fail. And it is, to begin with, and it may also have to be tuned and tweaked as the time goes by. A classic example, it's not in a slightly different, if you go to a village, the business, the guy who does a pan business or whatever it is, he needs working capital. Today he buys at 1%, he gets at 1% a day, which is like 200, 300%. Can we imagine that an institution set up with all the infrastructure cost, everything, and give him at 10%? If he fails to do 10%, he says it's exploitation. Probably he's charging 36%. Even our credit card is charged for 36%. So it becomes exploitation, having the skill. But what is the option for the user? 200%, 300% a year. So this is something that sometimes we become very holier than thou attitude and develop business models that cannot work. Second is that you build up SLAs, which is very good. That is the only way we can expect service. But when we build up SLAs, and also for him to deliver those services, he needs certain supports, approval, clearances, everything from the government side. It's a partnership. So what we often see is that only partnership one side work. Whatever delays, costs, approvals, delays, probably he would have given a code which was 2 years ago, by which everything has gone, and because of all the permissions approval, it has taken 3 years for it to be approved, and you're expecting to work on the same thing. He will try to cheat you, he will short circuit, because at the end of it, he is here for a business. If we are able to understand, appreciate, and appreciate the fact that the business is for profit, and a reasonable profit is accepted, and then if we insist on service delivery and its strict penal conditions, we can't give him monopoly there. There should be a way in which he is incentivized to give service. Otherwise, he will become another what they call a ठेकेदार. So that's one point. I'll just highlight only 2 or 3 of them. Second is, whenever we design, we heard many of the futuristic design. Tamoy said something, that is coming up. It could be cloud, it could be social network. The moment we think about when you're sitting and designing the solution, some other people say, oh, these are very futuristic. We don't have connectivity, we don't have electricity, bandwidth is not there, which is all true. But the thing is, are you developing a foundation which is going to take into account in the coming years this? Today you will not be able to make use of all of them. For example, it's simple. Country has invested so much to sort of do an Aadhaar. Aadhaar is there everywhere, it is not. But it is important that in each of our application, when you are developing the new application, build in provision for using of Aadhaar. You will not be able to use it today. But if you say that it is not there, so we will design it when it comes, then you are redesigning all over again. Each of this element is like that. Even if you're talking about a mobile application, pad. Our rural people don't have pad, which is very true. But we are working towards them, giving them connectivity and giving them cheaper access devices. If you are going to do that, make your applications capable of that. Okay, so that is why designed to exploit emerging trends, at the same time provide for ground realities. Which is like, for example, today, I mean, the concept of a CSE or a VLS is providing for ground reality because everybody do not have access to computers, and there are many places where we need to do. Next, I would like to just highlight on the solution architecture. So, I mean, some people are already very clearly explained about the business process reengineering. And just highlight one slightly different dimension of the same thing. Many of us use Apple, many of us see the iPod and the Apple computer, Apple phone and everything. Was he the inventor of any of this? He wasn't. What he really made, one of his biggest factors of success is the user interface that he designed. The user interface which would get acceptance. The user interface that made intuitive adoption of these things. And this is something which is critical in any application, which is something that we give the least amount of importance. And that itself, choice architecture itself is a scientific thing. But very often when we decide our solutions, services, etc., we forget about the right way to influence choice. In fact, in government service delivery, it should also be a way in which the way you provide the interface could also affect the way the person makes a choice. If we decide there are certain positive choices that the consumer, the citizen have to use, there should be a way of encouraging him to choose. I was reading somewhere, and these behavioral things has a humongous impact. I was reading somewhere that in UP when the election came, the election commission said all elephants should be covered by because it is a political party symbol. The very interesting thing I read is by covering it, you are making it more highlighted. Because whenever you see hundreds of the elephants there, we just ignore it. But the moment somebody goes and covers it all over, it is giving a cue. Please, what is underneath? It's the elephant. So that is the next point I want to just highlight on is the respect of data. In a large number of e-governance applications I've seen is that is the last thing that gets respected. We get fantastic, and the senior people are involved in design. People are involved in the process flow. But cleaning up the data is a time-consuming affair. It takes time, and that is left to the junior-most officer and whoever. Recently, I'm just giving two examples. Recently, one of the major ICT enablement funded by the central government, made available, including Haryana, many of them in the states. So I had the opportunity to just pick up some sample data. It's one of the very critical applications. Sample data from 2 states and from few number of districts. 95% of the data is junk. When we sat together, took it and sat, with the officers, including even the names are written ASDFA, okay, and we say that we have so much of data in there. If we do not have good quality of data, we will not be able to do anything with it. So that is something on which enormous effort has to be put in. Whether the validation, continuous review, incentive, disincentive, and most importantly with the technology that is coming, if we can bring in mechanisms for the people who see the data, use the data at that point of time to enter the data in a convenient fashion, the chance of it is the moment you send it to one data entry operator which is supervised in some other fashion, it doesn't get caught. So that is where some of the emerging techs of mobile applications, whether it is through SMS, whether it is through TAM, etc., can significantly change. And the last point I will just highlight, I heard your bell. Okay, is that, somebody actually referred to it briefly, is that, anytime when you make a policy change, if it is being affected by 100 people, let's say out of which 20 people have a negative impact and 80 people have positive impact. None of them 80 will come and say thank you. But out of 20, 19 will come and say, you screwed it up. And most unfortunately, one of the problems that the senior officers will be that out of the 21 will be a minister's nephew. Then what system are you making? So you have so many, so you end up making dukes and queens and change everything and you mess up in the system. So that is why we should have a very systematic method for any such initiative, whether it is e-governance or not, having a periodic evaluation with a very clear framework and publish that. And then take executive decisions and not based on anecdotal evidence. And with this, I would like to just these are the only 3 points I will make, and I just wanted you to share, share a very interesting quote which I said. That's why I'm very true believer of the computerization. Part of inhumanity of the computer system is that once it is completely programmed and working smoothly, it is completely honest. Thank you.